I did get into a motorcycle accident with my grandfather, and it skinned my knee, and she took me to the hospital and then told me that the doctor gave her a wheelchair, and I have to be in a wheelchair now.
Forever.
Forever.
Two of Springfield, Missouri's most renowned and revered citizens, Gypsy Blanchard and her mother Dee Dee, taking center stage.
You're the reason I was born, to be your mom.
But then comes the day when family friends Kim and David are horrified when something very different popped up on Gypsy and Dee Dee's Facebook page, a very vulgar post.
It said, "The bitch is dead." Then we saw the second one, which said, "And I, her sweet daughter too."
With breaking news, the body of 48-year-old Dee Dee Blanchard has been found.
Gypsy is still missing this morning.
I heard her scream once, and there was more screaming, but not like the kind in a horror film, just like a startled scream. And she called out to my name about 3 or 4 times. And at that point, I wanted to go help her so bad, but I was so afraid to get up.
Hello and welcome to another I Could Murder a podcast. We are back once again with a brand new big old case. How are you doing, Ben Carter?
Doing really well, thank you. This is the quarter mark of the series. Absolutely flying, but doing really well. Happy to be back with my buds. What a case today. Nothing quite like it that I've seen before. How are we? Producer Dan?
Yeah, very good, thanks. But it's been a bit stormy around here, isn't it? Bit stormy, but very much looking forward to today, because today's a controversial one.
Dan, I learned something about storms, which I thought maybe the listeners and the viewers would like to know. I didn't know it was a thing.
Go on.
Well, over here in the UK, it's probably a thing all around the world. We have the storms are named things. They come with certain names, usually quite interesting names, not ones you commonly know. I think the one currently is Owen, spelt with an E, or
yes,
the Welsh Owen.
Yeah,
right?
Or Irish. I've heard it might be Irish.
Sorry.
But I was like, well, they never seem to get far in the alphabet. Apparently, they restart the alphabet from the beginning every year for the storms, so you can kind of mark how many storms there be in that year.
That is a great fact.
That's clever.
We're already on E on the 24th of January.
Yeah.
But I think they don't start at the 1st of January. They start it like maybe toward the end in winter.
And have they just plonked that E on the start because they didn't get to O last year for Owen? And they've gone, we'll give Owen a go this year. We'll pop an E before E Owen. Get him a go on the storm scale.
They could do. I haven't actually looked at that bit.
Yeah.
If I was to name a storm something beginning with E, I probably wouldn't have gone with that. Maybe Earl.
Yeah, like that.
Because I'd imagine someone in the garden is shouting at their gazebo falling over going, Earl! But yeah, a bit harder with this one.
I'm really impressed with that fact. Maybe you can start bringing some more facts to these episodes to kick off the episodes.
That's a light Tommy's trivia.
Awesome.
But anyway, back to it. Enough waffle about storms. As we said, this is a big old case. And Ben, can you tell the listeners and viewers what the case is today?
I can indeed. So this week, it is the case of Gypsy Rose Blanchard, also referred to as the murder of Dee Dee Blanchard. Gypsy Rose, life after lockup. The life and deceptions of Claudine Blanchard. The Nicholas Godejohn case. Gypsy Rose, justice or crime. And if you joined us last week, there was kind of Tom and I both had one, really. My one was, is that Tyson Fury going on a blind date? I think you said Tyson Fury looks a bit prickly because of the roses.
Yeah.
Something like that. But yeah, either way, we arrive at the case of Gypsy Rose Blanchard. And as Dan said, controversial one. My mind has been all over the place with this case. Truly has. You said that there's something about her, didn't you? No. Don't recall saying that. No, Dan, don't.
And I'm talking about the mum he said it about as well.
Right.
Oh, damn.
So I wouldn't mind going to the theme park with her and her pushing me around. I was like, I don't know what that means, Ben. But anyway.
It does sound like something I might say, but I don't recall. Maybe it was a few Christmas sherries. And...
Sherry?
Well, okay.
But as we always do, producer Dan, can you set the scene?
Late night, June 9th, 2015. The city of Springfield, Missouri. 48-year-old Dee Dee Blanchard lies in her bed, unaware of the imminent danger slowly creeping closer towards her. Her daughter, 23-year-old Gypsy Rose Blanchard, waits anxiously in another room, while her 26-year-old boyfriend, Nicholas Godejohn, enters the house armed with a knife she's provided him. Gypsy's disturbing plan is now fully in motion. As Dee Dee sleeps peacefully, Nicholas approaches her and, without warning, launches into a vicious attack. He climbs over her and begins stabbing her, a volume of which would result in 17 separate wounds. Dee Dee wakes in terror, screaming for help from her daughter and trying to fight back. But the attack is swift and brutal. Her blood now stains the bed and bedroom walls as her life ends violently in the room she thought she was safest. Meanwhile, Gypsy lowers her hands from covering her ears and listens out for confirmation. Torn between fear and relief, knowing that this murder will finally free her from her mother's oppressive control and a life of abuse, but place her into an entirely new world of scrutiny. How did Dee Dee's systematic abuse of Gypsy Rose remain undetected for so long? What was the wider context of Nicholas Godejohn's involvement? Was he manipulated or acting of his own accord? When did the public begin to view Gypsy Rose as a victim rather than a criminal? And why did Gypsy Rose feel that murdering her own mother was her last remaining option?
Yeah, so obviously, gruesome scene laid there, and obviously that's not we're going to fill you in all the details in terms of how Gypsy got to this stage where she felt the only way necessary was to do this heinous act. Very controversial case. Lots of people have lots of opinions on it. First opinion I'm going to put out there is, would you call your daughter Gypsy?
Oh. I mean, the rose element, sort of the double barrel element, does make it a bit sort of more palatable. But it wouldn't be top of my list. It would probably be sort of in the 40 odd.
Read online, apparently, the mum liked the name Gypsy and the dad liked Guns N' Roses. Put it together, Gypsy Rose.
Brilliant.
Why not Gypsy November Rain? I feel like it's a bit like the boy named Sue. You're giving her a hard start in life and she's going to be bullied for the name. Because, yeah, over here in the UK anyway, there's definitely a connotation with the word gypsy, like, you know, Tyson Fury, like as Ben had in the clue. It's to do with people, nomadic people, travellers. The derogative term for travellers is gypsies.
Quick little check. According to AI, the name Gypsy is not considered a very popular name for humans, ranking quite low on baby name lists. But it's sometimes a unique choice, particularly for pets.
Never had a pet called.
Never.
Imagine a budgie called Gypsy.
I feel like there will be one now that you've said that. Someone's going to...
I'm imagining it right now, actually. Yeah. So
actually, it sounds pretty lit.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. But back to the case. We're going to begin with a brief bit of background on Claudine Dee Dee Blanchard before moving on to the tumultuous life and highly divisive crimes of her daughter, Gypsy Rose Blanchard.
So Claudine Dee Dee Blanchard was born Claudine Petra on the 3rd of May 1967 in the rural location of Chack Bay, southern Louisiana. She was one of 7 children born to Claude and Emma Petra, having 4 brothers, Todd, Tate, Evans and Claude Jr., and 2 sisters, Dorla and Claudia. Much more sort of mainstream names there. The family, who were predominantly of French-Canadian descent, moved to the nearby town of Golden Meadow, Louisiana, and this is where they started to build their lives together. The small town being very well known for its, is it Cajun? Cajun or Cajun?
You can say
definitely Cajun. Definitely Cajun from the reactions there in the room.
Cajun.
Yeah, Cajun.
Some Cajun chicken.
Cajun.
That's good, Dan.
Just eat the crab, because seafood.
Shut the
Okay. Anyway, Golden Meadow, guys, very well known for its Cajun culture and cuisine, with many highly rated bayou-based restaurants, including Mima's Cajun Kitchen. I nearly did the Cajun there. Mima's Cajun Kitchen, Little Eagle Crawfish, Griffin's Sizzling Restaurant, Binny Bees, Yankee Canal Seafood, and not forgetting Go Bear's Southern Eatery. So from the podcast here, if you guys ever find yourself in Golden Meadow, Louisiana, or maybe that's where you're from, be sure to let us know. Or if you have a budgie.
Ben's assured me this is relevant to the case and it's not just waffle.
Painting some colour on the case here.
Where the mum grew up.
Just to make it even more waffly, if you had to pick one of those restaurants, which one would you go for?
I'm not going Binny Bees.
Memo's Cajun Kitchen. It's best reviewed, I think. It's got 4.9 stars.
Go Bears.
You would go Bears.
But I'll see you there. Table 2, please.
It's funny how that worked out. Getting annoyed by the hypotheticals.
I'm going to go for the one that's got the better reviews. Can I have the Cajun crab, please?
Oh, fucking hell. Let's carry on.
Family size.
Family size crab. From a very early age, Claudine picked up the name Dee Dee, which would stick with her for the rest of her life. She was described as a highly sociable and very energetic young girl who quickly became agitated when things did not go her way. It was not at all out of place to see Dee Dee throw a tantrum or complain about her many siblings to her parents. And apparently, as she grew older, instead of throwing tantrums and screaming in public when things didn't quite go her way, she would instead begin to steal from her family as a form of retaliation.
Not long after leaving school, Dee Dee started working as a nurse's aide at the local hospital, and this was alongside one of her childhood friends from the same neighbourhood as her, Christy Mathern, as well as her future stepmother, Laura May Lee Serrani. A lot of them have a double barrel name, don't they?
They do. They
got more barrels than a fucking whiskey old factory that stores their whiskey in barrels.
Distillery.
No, whiskey factory that stores them in barrels is what I'm going to go with. Thank you very much, though. Though she didn't know it at the time, both of these people would play significant roles in her later life. Whilst working as an aide, Dee Dee was in many different environments in which she would witness people suffering from different illnesses and conditions, which once again would play a significant role in her later life. She is said to have taken very naturally as an aide, but also wanted to utilise these new skills and experience to become a caregiver of her own. It is also in this role that it is speculated that Dee Dee first began to think about, was made aware of, Poly syndrome, or factitious disorders, also known as Munchausen disorder, as well as the by proxy variant of each term, though more information about this disorder would come to light in the following decades. A few different names for that. I've only ever heard it as Munchausen.
Yeah, apparently it's since been more modernised than that. It's now factitious disorder imposed on another. The more you know.
In early 1990, aged 23, Dee Dee met a 17-year-old by the name of Rod Blanchard at a local bar within a bowling alley. 23-year-old going for a 17-year-old. It is interesting. How you doing?
Really interesting, actually.
Thank you so much. The pair very quickly fell for one another. As quickly as the pins fell, they fell in love. And later that same year, after just a handful of months knowing one another, they were married by December of 1990. Strike.
That wasn't great.
It was not. It wasn't, no.
Sound effects might save it, though.
Sadly, after only 6 months of marriage, the couple made the decision to separate. Oh, 10-pence split.
Guttable.
Oh. Gutted bull. Gutted Rod. Oh, I'll pay for that wedding. With Rod saying that he, quote, got married for the wrong reasons. I hope it wasn't the double D's. Because she's called Dee Dee. This may well have been because of the fact that Dee Dee was pregnant at the time that they got married. Nevertheless, the following month, Dee Dee gave birth to a baby girl without Rod by her side, with Dee Dee and her newborn subsequently moving back in with her parents, who helped her to raise the child.
Gypsy Rose Alquida Blanchard was actually born on the 27th of July 1991 in Golden Meadow, Louisiana. Now, the reason why we've used the term actually is because her date of birth will change many points during this case. Her mother would fictitiously create new dates of birth for her and new ages.
That's like yours. How many times you've been fucking 32 or whatever?
Yeah, you called me 32 when I was about 27. Adding years to me.
Changes like the wind.
No. Hey, come on. So yeah.
32.
Okay, well, we're 2 months apart, 3 months apart.
Feels like days.
Okay. As we've explained, she was the only child born to Rod and Dee Dee Blanchard, though she would later gain a half-brother called Dylan and a half-sister called Mia when Rod later remarried. Despite the fact that Rod and Dee Dee had separated just before Gypsy Rose was born, Rod did still have a hand in naming the child. As Tom mentioned earlier, the couple decided on Gypsy Rose because Dee Dee loved the name Gypsy and Rod was said to have been a massive fan of Guns N' Roses. I did do a little Google on what the Alquida which sounds exactly Alcida. Al-Qaeda? Is that how you'd pronounce that? Or Al-Qaeda? Al-Qaeda?
I wouldn't pronounce it Al-Qaeda.
No. Well, this is the interesting thing, Dan, because when I search for the meaning of Alcida, if you literally search Alcida meaning, it just comes up with a load of Al-Qaeda meanings, which really confused me. I know they had a bit of a, Gypsy's unconventional. Alcida.
Alcida? I barely know her.
Terrific.
Yeah. Alcida family history is found in the USA in 1920.
Have you skipped a load of Al-Qaeda?
First hit.
What have you searched?
He's on Bing.
Bonds, I'll show you a screenshot of this. It's unreal.
I'll show you this.
What is...
Well, what does it mean, Dan? Because all I could find was sort of a history of Al-Qaeda.
Right, it says Alcida or Al-Qaeda surname meaning. There's nothing.
It's a terrorist organisation.
Oh, here we go.
This is going to be good.
The Alcida family name was found in the USA in 1920. In 1920, there was one Alcida family living in Hawaii. This doesn't explain where it comes from.
No.
Good, though. Good information for people to go away with something. When Gypsy was just 3 months old, her mother Dee Dee informed Rod that her baby had been suffering from sleep apnea, which had resulted in both Dee Dee and Gypsy being kept up for multiple hours throughout the night. And on at least one occasion...
Alcida is of Greek origin and means cowardly.
Oh, there you go.
I'll see you later when about happens.
When about happens.
Battle.
Oh, battle. Bout, though, would also work.
Yeah, I didn't say that.
Yeah. So anyway, she basically noticed her little baby is apparently suffering from sleep apnea and on at least one occasion had completely stopped breathing. Due to this, Dee Dee began to repeatedly take her daughter to the local hospital. However, a number of overnight stays utilizing a sleep monitor, as well as the presence of medical professionals and additional assessments, revealed no evidence of Gypsy actually having the condition. Rod and other members of Dee Dee's family also found this to be the case and started to suspect that it may have in fact been Dee Dee who was suffering from a lack of proper sleep. So at this point, they're not suspecting anything to the depths of where it will go, but they're thinking, okay, she's just recently become a parent. She has a newborn at home with her. They're sharing the same room. She's probably just not getting a lot of sleep and she's imagining that her baby stopped breathing. But it will, yes, this web will start to weave from here onwards.
As well as sleep apnea, Dee Dee started to believe that Gypsy had numerous other health and medical conditions, including epilepsy, chromosomal aberration, severe asthma, hearing and visual impairments, developmental delays, as well as muscular dystrophy. All of these diagnoses were made by Dee Dee and not backed up by any medical professional. As a result, Gypsy was provided with a wheeled walker while she learned to walk, which her mother insisted that she constantly used. Trips to the hospital neonatal units continued to be a regular occurrence, whilst Dee Dee would openly discuss her daughter's, quote, numerous problems with friends and strangers alike. And it seems that she started to feed off the sympathy and attention, eventually claiming that her toddler had been diagnosed with, and swiftly recovered from, leukemia. Gypsy would remain completely silent at all of these appointments, but this was not flagged by medical professionals. Later in life, Gypsy would reflect on this. The doctors thought that my mother was so devoted and caring. She would constantly bring me to the hospital and to her former colleagues' houses. I think she would have been the perfect mum for someone that was actually sick. But I wasn't sick, and I'm still not sick. There's that big, big difference.
In 1996, when Gypsy was just 5 years old, she claimed that her grandfather Claude's behaviour towards her and her mother started to become inappropriate and highly concerning. This started when Dee Dee was herself hospitalised as a result of a car accident, which made her briefly immobile. In her book, released Conversations on the Eve of Freedom, which is a terrible name for a book.
I like On the Eve of Freedom.
Conversations on the Eve of Freedom. I don't know.
I'm intrigued. What were they talking about?
I put it back on the shelf. Gone to Where's Wally. Can't find him. I'm a bit annoyed. Go to Greg's and buy a sausage roll. Oh, it's flaky all over my trousers. What day out. She wrote that her grandfather started making her and her mother take group baths with him for several months. She also hinted that he would regularly fondle and abuse Dee Dee in front of the rest of the family. Both of these allegations have been denied by other family members.
Well, this has come from Gypsy rather than Dee Dee. If it was Dee Dee, I would straight away take it with a pinch of salt. I mean, anyone.
Bath salt, perhaps.
Perhaps, yes. But the fact that, this has come from Gypsy at a time in her life when she obviously had reason to have a negative view of her mother, and she's stating that happened. So I'm on the fence with that comment. Obviously, don't do it. If you're listening, don't do it.
But don't fondle
your relatives.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to be said.
Well, some people need to hear that, don't they? Dan?
We'll talk later on that.
What?
I
don't need to hear it, Ben.
No. I just wanted you to back me up that people need to hear it.
Oh, right. Yeah, don't fondle your relatives.
Thank you.
I think our listeners and viewers are on the right path and don't even consider that.
But someone could just stumble across this episode and be a relative fondler.
Oh, but even fondling with Ben Carter.
If we've stopped just one, that's... Yeah.
You got that big old hot tub. You could fit a load of relatives in there.
Yeah, no relatives have been in there yet. It's just friends.
Probably good reason.
Okay. Just friends. We see how long we can hold our breath. And Dan, we thought Dan had died.
Fucking smashed it.
Yeah. Suspicious.
Bonds, if you could just mock up the book on the Eve of Freedom on the Eve of Fondling with Ben on the front, ideally in the wheelchair. If he'd help me, that'd be great. As well as this, another contentious issue occurred in the Blanchard-Petre household just a few months later, in 1997. Dee Dee's aging mother, Emma Petre, passed away under the primary care of her daughter. Many years later, the family would assert that Dee Dee may have actually played a significant role in her death, as they believed that she had either been withholding food and medication from her, or had been slowly and subtly poisoning her own mother by lacing her meals with weed killer.
Strong stuff.
Yes.
For sure. Due to the fact that these accusations were only brought to light decades later, no evidence could be found to support these claims. Christy Blanchard, who would become the second wife of Rod Blanchard, as well as a stepmother to Gypsy, said the following on Dee Dee's behaviour towards her own mother.
Dee Dee was starving Emma. Dee Dee wasn't giving her anything to eat. I asked her sister, I was like, I hate to ask this, do you think Dee Dee had anything to do with her mum's death? And she said, now I wonder, to leave your own mama dirty and asking for food and not wanting to feed her, that's evil.
The following year, not long after Gypsy's 7th birthday, once again this is according to her book, Gypsy was riding on the back of her grandfather's motorcycle with him when the pair were involved in a very minor collision. Her grandfather was uninjured whilst Gypsy had a few small grazes on her knee. However, as you might expect, when Dee Dee found out about the accident, she took this as an opportunity to inform Gypsy that she needed to be placed in a wheelchair, which Gypsy would remain in for the following 16 to 18 years. This wheelchair was later fitted with oxygen tanks as well as a pump for a feeding tube, and many other wheelchairs would follow. It is believed that at around the same time period, due to fears that her various illnesses had progressed to an almost terminal extent and the fact that her, quote, brain damage meant that she couldn't keep up with other children, Dee Dee stopped Gypsy from attending school and started homeschooling her. By doing this, Dee Dee was able to completely isolate her daughter from the outside world and fall further into this fantasy world of her own. According to Gypsy, the homeschooling was very infrequent and incredibly basic whenever it did happen, and she claims that she learned to read on her own via repeatedly reading several Harry Potter books. But there's two big things here. So a little motorcycle collision, and she's grazed her knee. She's then been put in a wheelchair by her mother as a result of this. Then also she's taken out of school, taken away from any social life she did have, completely isolated by her mother. Yeah, it's going to get so much worse from this point onwards.
It's a question. With homeschooling, do the parents not need to have any kind of training whatsoever to be able to teach? It's just like, you can just go, I don't want my kids going to school, I'm going to teach them myself, and that's fine.
From what I know, you can just do it yourself.
It's a choice.
Wild.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, I'm sure some parents do it really well, but the majority probably don't. But you could argue that about schools, really. The majority of schools don't do it right.
Teach them about tax.
No, I disagree with that too. That's an adult thing you have to learn, not in fucking... Nobody cares when you're 15 years old about tax, Tom, do you? If you were taught about tax, would you care or retain that information? Of course not. You need to learn that when you're in your 20s.
But who's teaching you? No one teaches you in your 20s, and then you have to... You just don't know what you're doing. You're just running around.
Because you're an adult. You've got to find out yourself.
The tax man teaches you, and that's no way to learn.
He's been burnt.
I've been fucking burnt, yeah. Anyway, Mr. Mark Feldman, an expert on fictitious disorder imposed on another, stated the following on Gypsy's upbringing.
Gypsy was infantilized and intentionally kept away from her peers. She was a little more than a tool for Dee Dee to navigate through the world the way she wanted to. The length to which Dee Dee took it is remarkable. Part of the agenda appears to be malingering, trying to get money out of the fraud, but most of it seemed to be her pursuit of attention and control. After being removed from school, Dee Dee would regularly take Gypsy to various sci-fi and fantasy conventions across the country. The pair would often attend these conventions in costume, which allowed Gypsy to blend in with the very inclusive community whilst being in her wheelchair. She would also start taking her daughter to the Special Olympics. Once again, at these conventions and at the Special Olympics, Dee Dee would converse openly with strangers about her daughter's long list of different life-threatening conditions, whilst continuing to play the role of the doting, patient, caring and selfless mother. She would regularly lie about Gypsy's age at these events too, often introducing her to being a couple to several years younger than she actually was. As the years passed by, tensions began to develop once again in the Blanchard-Petra household. Several years after Emma had passed away under suspicious circumstances, Claude remarried a woman by the name of Laura Sereny. Dee Dee, who was living with the newlyweds together with her daughter, Gypsy, predominantly looked after the house and was responsible for most of the cooking. Laura suddenly fell violently ill and became bedridden for 9 months as a result of something she'd eaten. Jesus Christ.
I can smell a rat poison or weed killer. Seems to be those two things that tend to do the job, which again, don't do.
Don't need to clarify. Dee Dee was accused of lacing her meals with Roundup. Roundup's the worst!
Is that a brand or is that a type of weed killer?
That is, I'm pretty sure it's a brand, but I'm pretty sure that's got like the highest concentration of
like an industrial
chemicals.
level. Let's have a little look.
Bosh levels of weed killer.
Popular. Very popular. Very well reviewed. Total action.
Yeah, it would be total action.
Gets rid of everything. Kills weeds fast, naturally breaks down in soil.
After being confronted about this and her treatment of Gypsy, as well as the fact it had come to light that Dee Dee had been arrested multiple times for a number of minor infractions, including writing fraudulent checks, Dee Dee took Gypsy and moved into a public housing scheme in the city of Slidell, New Orleans. Perhaps unsurprisingly, Laura returned to full health not long after Dee Dee left.
See, a lot of parental issues with Dee Dee. There's allegations she tried to kill her had killed her biological mother. There's allegations she tried to kill her stepmother, and there are allegations that there were inappropriate relations between her and her father. Yeah, her upbringing will definitely play its part in, Gypsy's future upbringing, but in a totally different way. It just gets so strange from this point onwards. In 2001, now in a new location and free from her family's suspicion of numerous instances of medical abuse and attempted poisonings, Dee Dee starts to introduce Gypsy as a 7-year-old, despite her now being almost 11. The girl, who appeared to have ranging disabilities, was designated as the honorary queen of the Crew of Mid-City, which is a parade focused on children that takes place during Mardi Gras in New Orleans. During the event, Gypsy was interviewed where she expressed her affection for animals, mentioning that she has 4 cats and also referring to her grandfather as her best friend. The mother and daughter were surviving off of child support payments from Rod, as well as welfare payments that were provided to her based on the supposed medical conditions of her daughter, which basically dubbed Dee Dee as her official full-time caretaker. In order to continue her fantasy as well as secure her welfare payments and public housing accommodation, Dee Dee persistently sought the expertise of numerous medical specialists for her daughter, primarily at Tulane Medical Center and the Children's Hospital of New Orleans. Occasionally, Gypsy received proper treatment for these alleged health issues. Following her reports to physicians that Gypsy was experiencing seizures every few months, they prescribed anti-seizure medication to her, which caused her teeth to decay significantly to the point that they would fall out or have to be extracted. As well as this, it is alleged that Gypsy developed an addiction to pain medication as a child. And during the same period, Gypsy had to undergo multiple unnecessary surgeries as Dee Dee frequently brought her to the emergency room for the most minor of health concerns. So yeah, from this I read some stats about Munchausen Syndrome by Proxy and the victims of that, not the individual that has the disorder, but their victims they choose to assign all these illnesses and conditions to. And apparently up to 10% can actually die from what the perpetrators put them through. So all the invasive surgeries, medication that they shouldn't have to take, the damage that can do over time, 10% pass away.
I'm surprised that's not higher.
I thought it would be higher as well.
We've only covered cases like Beverly Allett, the Angel of Death, who had similar, but she's obviously treating infants within, as a nurse. It's obviously a very different circumstance. But yeah, if your body is healthy and you're being given all these strong like she's getting meds that have basically rotten her teeth away. Obviously, that's not going to be doing anything good to her body. But I'm surprised, like, surely, I know they're listening to the mother and not thinking, why would the mother lie? But surely he could be doing tests on her to find out if she actually got these ailments, or blood tests or whatever, and it's on the hospital to do that before to be able to prescribe such a heavy medication.
Yeah, there's one doctor that kind of picks up on this, but Dee Dee still finds a way to manipulate him. But I completely agree. How it wasn't caught sooner or uncovered sooner is quite strange.
And also the money that's been spent, surely, as well.
Yep.
In America, obviously, it being very expensive for healthcare. On the 29th of August 2005, Hurricane Katrina devastated large parts of New Orleans, the impact of which and the floods that followed claimed 986 lives, left 639 people missing, and caused more than $200 billion worth of damage in present-day value. That is wild. Makes Storm Owen look like a
bit of a pussy.
Pathetic.
Yeah.
Despite the immense chaos of the situation and being made homeless in the process, Dee Dee continued with her fantasy and opted to try and use the situation to her benefit. The pair lived in a shelter that was created specifically for people with disabilities for 3 months after the hurricane, where Dee Dee quickly came up with the idea to tell officials that Gypsy's birth certificate, as well as her medical records, had both been lost in the floods.
That is quite cunning of her.
2005, they've not got all this on systems, though.
I mean, that's quite a long time ago. People are still only just going digital with stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, but come on, surely, Dan.
Yeah.
Big hurricane, though, could have wiped everything out. Even computers and backups and
internet's work.
Yeah. I don't think it was on the cloud at that point.
If the internet.
It's hard copies. Perhaps.
Yeah, I don't think.
But yeah, this shows you how quickly she's thinking, though. Dee Dee.
That's, I could see why you like her. The pair were then airlifted to the city of Aurora, Missouri, where they briefly lived in rented accommodation, and Gypsy was actually honoured as the 2007 Child of the Year by the Ole Foundation, a charity which advocates for the rights of feeding tube recipients and last-minute goals from the bench. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
Yeah, did well last night, didn't he?
I don't know.
Beat someone really good 4-1 with a crap team on his managerial debut. It doesn't matter. Yeah, exactly. Slow down.
Motorbucks, though. They're cool.
Not talking about
At this point, Gypsy is 16, but introduced as a 10 or 11-year-old by her mother. I think she's 10 or 11. She has to spend the majority of her time and any time out in public confined to a wheelchair. She also regularly receives oxygen and her food via a feeding tube, both of which were attached to the wheelchair. She is unnecessarily fed the children's liquid nutrition supplement, Pedisure, well into her 20s. As well as this, she has received numerous medications and surgeries for illnesses and conditions that were not present. As we mentioned, her teeth are beginning to rot out as a result of the medication, and her mother Dee Dee often shaves her hair or keeps it incredibly short to mimic the appearance of a chemotherapy patient. And she's also made to wear oversized, thick-frame glasses. She also regularly wears hats or wigs to cover her baldness.
The horrible part about this is obviously Gypsy's still not completely aware of what's going on, and Dee Dee's not only pulling the wool over the public side, she's also doing it to Gypsy, saying,
Over thick rim glasses.
I'm gonna shave your hair because the medication will make it fall out anyway, so it's better I shave it now than let you have, patchy bits. It's fucking heartbreaking what she's doing at this point.
I read somewhere Gypsy was just a huge fan of Sinead O'Connor. But maybe I was wrong.
Maybe.
Nothing compares. Who wrote that originally, Dan?
Don't know.
Prince.
Oh.
It's a great
awesome.
Yeah. Had Tom Jones singing Purple Rain the other day.
That's interesting.
It is interesting.
Was he actually doing it, or was it
Tom
AI?
Jones?
No, he's doing it, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Purple. It just doesn't say the word very clearly, but it's still worth a listen. Gypsy is incredibly small for both her real age and her fabricated one, and she speaks with a distinctive, high-pitched, almost cartoon-like voice. Gypsy would allege that her mother used physical abuse and manipulation in order to make her believe that she was genuinely suffering from these illnesses. She said that she would always hold her hand in public and squeeze it incredibly hard if Gypsy said or did anything that didn't go along with her image. She would also allegedly beat her with various household items behind closed doors, predominantly coat hangers. Famously, didn't Eminem's mum suffer with Munchausen Syndrome by proxy?
Yes. Got that in the aftermath.
No. That happened before.
Is it cleaning out my closet, wasn't it? The one that about that?
He mentions his mum quite a few times.
In September of 2007, a Springfield-based pediatric neurologist by the name of Dr. Bernardo Flastacine became
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Dr. Flastacine. So yeah, Bernardo Flastacine became concerned by Gypsy's mounting diagnoses after examining her on a regular basis. And after observing Gypsy standing up and holding her own weight for extended periods of time without Dee Dee being present, he informed her, "I don't see any reason why your daughter doesn't walk." So immediately Dee Dee starts to panic upon hearing that news. As a result, she gained access to his notes and saw that he had suspicions. So she immediately stopped taking Gypsy to see Dr. Flastacine. Could be Flasterstein, that would probably make a lot more sense.
Frankenstein's more successful brother.
Does a lot, yes, yeah. Gone out and done the business. So yeah, she stops taking Gypsy to see Dr. Flasterstein, and this is due to fears of getting caught in her own web of lies. However, when Dr. Flasterstein, which I'll keep saying, went on to report the incident to social services, he was informed by his colleagues that, quote, Dee Dee and Gypsy Rose were to be treated with golden gloves and that officials would not believe his story. So as a result, the incident went unreported.
That is wild.
They let in the least amount of goals at a tournament. That's crazy.
Yeah. Golden gloves, Dan. Golden gloves.
Yeah.
But this is the first guy that thinks, hang on, something's not quite right here. I'm assuming he has like a little notepad on the desk, goes out for some reason. Dee Dee leans over, scribbles something out and said, right, we're out of here. And then quickly makes a run for it.
Again, I still like to think they're using computers by this stage.
But how has she got access to his notes? If I don't view her as text. Oh, well, she does use Facebook quite a lot, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's wild that she had access to the notes, but perhaps that's a case of like, you know, there's that folder, isn't there, at the end of the bed?
Yeah.
Like, let's see, what you're suffering with.
Yeah.
I find it more wild that someone with authority just gets ignored from a genuine tip-off of concern.
Well, let be similar. But that obviously an award-winning pair, these two.
They've done a lot for charity. They've
untouchable
beacon of light. But yeah, I find that wild. Like, as we said earlier, like those tests, I've seen if she can walk and other things, you would have thought quite easy to do.
I wonder what that's doing to Gypsy at that point then, if she realises, actually, I can get up, I can walk around, I can hold my own weight. I don't feel that, well, I mean, imagine she does feel bad from all the surgery and medication she has unnecessarily taken. I wonder what's going through her mind at this point as well.
Maybe this is where a slight crack begins to form.
So despite this particular incident going unreported, a number of anonymous calls started being made to local police regarding the actions and behaviours of Dee Dee Blanchard. Tips were provided to police that suggested Dee Dee was using a false name, a false background, false health conditions and a false age for both her and her child. Anytime that this was followed up by welfare checks, officers chose to believe Dee Dee and side with her even more after she had informed them that she had intentionally given out falsified information because of the fact that her and her daughter were on the run from an abusive and dangerous ex-husband. And once again, the case was closed. In early 2008, Dee Dee and Gypsy were provided with a purpose-built house in the city of Springfield, Missouri, by the Christian non-profit organization Habitat for Humanity. This was after its founders had learned that a single mother and her profoundly disabled daughter had lost everything as a result of Hurricane Katrina. The house, which was a pink bungalow on West Volunteer Way, was fitted with numerous wheelchair ramps, multiple open-plan rooms, a large garden, which Dee Dee would actually regularly use as an outdoor cinema and charge neighbours between $1 to $5 to see a movie, and the house even had a hot tub. Dee Dee now introduced herself as Claudinia Blanchard, so she basically sort of added an A to the end of her first name and an E to the end of her surname.
Hyacinth Bouquet.
Yeah, so instead of...
It's not bucket, it's bouquet. Richard!
So instead of Claudine Blanchard, she was now saying it was Claudinia Blanchard with that accent. But everybody knew her as Dee Dee. And according to one local of the time, in their new community, both Dee Dee and Gypsy were impossible to forget once you had met them.
Hot tub and big garden and bungalow and ramp.
It's all very Ben Carr, isn't it?
I don't have a ramp.
Yet.
I don't have a ramp.
Dee Dee was a large, affable-looking person, which she reinforced by dressing in bright, cheerful colours. She had curly brown hair she liked to hold back with ribbons. People who knew her remember her as generous with her time, and when she could be, generous with money. She could make friends quickly and inspired deep devotion. She did not have a job, but instead served as a full-time caretaker for Gypsy Rose, her teenage daughter.
The local continued to describe Dee Dee's daughter.
Gypsy was a tiny thing, perhaps 5 feet tall as far as anyone could guess. She was confined to a wheelchair. Her round face was overwhelmed by a pair of owlish glasses. She was pale and skinny, and her teeth were crumbling and painful. She always had a feeding tube. Sometimes Dee Dee had to drag an oxygen tank around with them, and a nasal cannula looped around Gypsy's small ears. If you asked about her daughter's diagnosis, Dee Dee would reel off a list as long as her arm. It seems as though life could not get any better for the Blanchards, with Gypsy herself stating, "It just proves that happy endings are not just in fairy tales, they're real." But things were not all what they appeared to be. With this newfound minor sense of celebrity, as well as a huge amount of public sympathy, a house built and donated to them, and a great deal of community support, Dee Dee was still not satisfied. She would plead for and receive free flights, hospital consultations, and accommodation all over America in order to see specialists regarding her daughter. They received numerous free trips to Walt Disney World and backstage passes to multiple concerts and film events via the Make-A-Wish Foundation. There are photos of Gypsy meeting Blake Shelton, Elijah Wood, Miranda Lambert, and Sean Astin.
No idea the last two.
Oh, he's Mr. Frodo. Sean Astin's the Sam G.
Samwise.
Yes.
Who's Miranda Lambert?
Don't know, but there's loads of photos with Miranda Lambert. I think she's a singer or a musician, songwriter person.
American country singer, songwriter, and guitarist.
And then we all know Blake Shelton. She put the fur.
See, again, it's like she would receive she would receive hospital consultations all over the world. Why is the concern not mounting here?
The only thing I can think of, if you moved one to another and you get given the notes, if they are just taking the other doctor's notes, but does it start from one doctor who's done it wrong or not looked into it and just believed the mum, and then from that point onwards they don't feel they have to test every time for it, and it just kind of confounds it every time and compounds it.
Well, she can now also say everything was lost in Katrina, and no one's going to challenge that. And also, because she's been bound to that wheelchair for so long, she is very small. Her muscles aren't as developed as other children her age or teenagers her age. You just would never suspect it, would you?
But then, if I was a doctor and you're saying lost all the forms, we're going to have to retest for some things. We're going to have to retest for this stuff because obviously, or even insurance would need things to be tested and stuff like that if they're going for insurances. So I get it to an extent, but I don't know. At this time, Dee Dee made the decision to have some of Gypsy's saliva glands treated with Botox, but then changed her mind and had them extracted altogether. This was allegedly to control her purported drooling. Saliva glands coming out, that would hurt. Ben, you were going to get some of your sweat glands removed, weren't you? Because of just
the odorless man.
Stank.
No, the odorless. I do sweat, but it's just there's nothing to it. In a way, it kind of smells like a cucumber. Just no scent. Just water.
Is that creepy? For some reason, imagine it green, little bits.
No. Just odorless.
That's for your arse, isn't?
I didn't even realise you could have your glands removed.
I think that's the thing to focus on.
Definitely, and not Ben's shitty gland. Yeah, no, I don't know how that would go about. I imagine that'd be very painful and invasive.
Surely there's a lot as well, isn't there?
Oh yeah, Dan. Trust me. However, Gypsy would later claim that her mother induced the drooling herself by applying a topical anaesthetic to numb her gums just before doctor visits. The lack of salivary glands, coupled with side effects of the anti-seizure medication she was regularly and unnecessarily given, caused her remaining teeth to decay to the point that the majority of her front teeth were extracted and replaced with a bridge.
It's awful.
As well as this, Dee Dee made further manipulations that resulted in tubes being implanted in her ears to control Gypsy's supposed repeated ear infections. It's like a London Underground map now, isn't she? Jesus. Whilst Dee Dee was living the high life via the systematic abuse and manipulation of her daughter, Gypsy's father Rod was back in Louisiana and still sending her the regular $1,200 per month child support payments. Is that a lot? It feels like it's a lot.
I mean, 800, 900 quid a month is, maybe.
I'm not in that world.
Too rich.
Yeah, I'd give it $2,000, but
lost touch.
Get some more tubes for her. Rod would often try to rekindle his relationship with his daughter and regularly offer to travel out to Springfield to see them. But every time a meeting date came close, Dee Dee would cancel or change plans at the very last minute. She did this whilst telling both Gypsy and her neighbours that Rod was an absent father who had been unfaithful and abusive, as well as a drug and alcohol addict. She also told them that he couldn't handle Gypsy's numerous health conditions and had never sent them any financial support. Obviously, like almost everything else in her life to this point, this was far from the truth. On Dee Dee's Life of Lies, her ex-husband Rod recalled,
I think Dee Dee's problem was that she started a web of lies, and there was no escaping it afterwards. She got so wound up in it, it was like a tornado got started, and then, once she was so deep, there was no escaping. One lie had to cover another lie, which had to cover another lie, and that was her way of life. Yeah, once you're in so deep, there's no way you're getting out of that.
This is the point, though, because although she seems to be able to think on the spot quite quickly and act on relative intuition, there's so much risk of it now all just falling apart. And how it hasn't is, as everyone says, it's bizarre that no one has caught her out yet. Or at least...
Is there ever a point where that she actually just believes herself? Or does she know full well that this is all a web of lies?
I think...
Has it got so deep that it's like, no, this is true now?
Well, I think part of this, there's no known cure for this particular disorder. Part of it is that they actually believe in this fantasy world. Others know.
How, self-aware are you with it?
Well, I guess it's like, kind of not exactly the same thing, but in the same realm. Health anxiety, you're imagining you've got certain ailments or certain things going on. Get really into your own head. And if you have a daughter and you kind of put that anxiety onto her and you see everything and you're kind of expecting things or Googling things and putting things in your mind, I could see why it could run away with you a bit.
Mm-hmm. According to the NHS website regarding fabricated or induced illness by proxy, the parent or carer is not always fully aware of the reasons for their own behaviour. A large number of parents or carers involved have borderline personality disorders characterised by emotional instability, impulsiveness, or disturbed thinking. So I don't know. I think it's partly, there might be a sociopathic element to this as well. She's believing this life is real. Because technically it was, the life was real, but the lies were not.
It's hard because that kind of doesn't explain the abuse that she would inflict on Gypsy Rose. If she wasn't going, or it wasn't acting the way that she wanted to, she would squeeze her hand or beat her later on in the day. So it sounds like she is well aware, but I don't know.
Yeah, that is very true. So I think Ben should consider that.
It seems that as Gypsy grew into an adult, this web of lies had become something she very much wanted to free herself from. In February of 2011, when Gypsy was 21 years old but her mother was introducing her to everyone as a 15-year-old, the pair went to a sci-fi convention together. Midway through the convention, Gypsy attempted to escape, or was almost abducted, which ultimately resulted in her mother discovering her in the company of an older man by the name of Dan.
Damn.
With whom she had apparently been communicating with online prior to the event. So regarding this, there are two distinctly different accounts of what happened. According to one recollection of the events, attendees at the convention who were familiar with Gypsy and her mother expressed concern after they discovered Gypsy in a man's hotel room, believing her to be 15 years old while the man was somewhere close to 35. Spot on, isn't it? It's absolutely spot on. It was reported that Dee Dee then presented falsified documents indicating a different birth date and threatened to contact law enforcement, leading to the man releasing Gypsy.
Let's soon start a true crime podcast together and invite me on it.
However, the alternative version suggests that Gypsy had recently learned that she was actually 21 years old and had therefore devised a plan, together with Dan, to escape to Arkansas with him. She claims to have left a note for Dee Dee expressing her desire to become an independent woman and had hitchhiked to Dan's friend's home at 2 a.m. Upon arrival, she quickly discovered that Dan was in fact on parole and therefore prohibited from leaving the state. Gypsy would later assert that Dee Dee only found her because she had forgotten her phone, which allowed Dee Dee to track her down. So Gypsy, from this moment onward, would maintain that all of this happened off her own back. She left off her own accord. And Dee Dee had apparently assured her that she, despite everything that had happened, could continue her relationship with Dan. Following this, Gypsy alleges that Dee Dee destroyed her laptop and phone using a hammer and even threatened to harm her fingers if she attempted to escape again. Gypsy further claims that she was then restrained with a leash and handcuffed to her bed and was deprived of food for 2 weeks as punishment for this escape attempt. Dee Dee later informed her that she had filed documents with the police declaring Gypsy as, quote, mentally incompetent. So from this point onwards, this is huge in the case as well. She now feels, I can't go to the police because they think I don't have capacity. And definitely going to the police was something that she had crossed her mind multiple times. Dee Dee has now completely manipulated that option. And this instilled her the belief that any attempt to seek help from law enforcement or to escape once again would be futile.
Tension seemed to continue to simmer between the pair from this moment onwards. 4 months later, in June of 2011, shortly after her release from alleged confinement, Gypsy attempted to escape once again, this time directly from the family home. She did this by firing a BB gun at her mother 10 times, mistakenly believing it to be a real firearm. Dee Dee was able to overpower her daughter and place her back in her restraints, before allegedly locking her in the garden shed. Not wanting to miss out on a great opportunity to gain even more attention and sympathy, Dee Dee told her neighbours that the injuries she had sustained were the result of a robbery attempt. Fucking hell.
Quick thinker.
She's on it, yeah.
Yeah, technical minded.
Loves a bit of fucking sympathy. Grow up. During this period, Gypsy often snuck away from her mother's eye overnight in order to access the family computer, where she admitted to sharing explicit images of herself online via one of her 5 secret social media accounts. A decision she made to enhance her incredibly low self-esteem and sense of self-worth.
Yeah, there are a whole community of people completely obsessed with this case. There's Reddit is particularly thriving with different opinions about this case and people that follow the case. I found one particular thread that basically shows all of these different screenshots of different Facebook accounts that either Gypsy or Dee Dee or the pair together were running. Some of them are just very emotive and talking about we love our family, we thank God every day for the fact that we have this life together. But there was one that really stood out. There was a few as well, like where it's like typical kind of Facebook mum kind of warnings about certain things going on in certain areas. There's one that says, warning, if a man approaches you in a Walmart parking lot and asks for money, run away. Gyp and I got robbed. Gyp is okay. I'm very shaken up and I got shot. Hope the police get them. I don't know if she actually got shot. But there was one that I saw that really stood out to me, which was...
Was that not her talking about the BB gun thing?
There you go. That could be. I think there was like an armed robbery, but yeah, very, very much could be. A lot of it is talking about like going to hospital appointments and things like that. But there was one from February 21st, 2014, so just over a year before the murder, which I presume was written by Dee Dee, which says, Gypsy's friend Hayley was kidnapped, raped and murdered. She was going to come over tomorrow to play, but instead we are going to her memorial. Gypsy and I are heartbroken. The police did catch the monster who did this. We can't understand how someone could do this. Hayley was a sweet little girl, always polite and happy. She was only 11 years old. Be at peace to our little angel Hayley. We will miss you. So as well, that's obviously tragic in itself, but she's referring to Hayley as Gypsy's friend. Hayley's 11, Gypsy's 20 at this point. So again, gives you an idea of the kind of age gap there. But yeah, apparently that's also a huge case in Springfield, this murder of the young girl, Hayley Owens. But yeah, there's a bunch of different screenshots. They were very active on social media and very much painting the illusion that they loved each other, had the best, she said, I have the best kiddo in the world, I have the best mom in the world. Yeah, but that there's a few that sort of stand out as a bit peculiar.
Is a fucking caps lock button broken or something?
Could well be.
Fucking stop shouting.
Yeah.
There's one in my local, there's always interest in your local town groups. There's always this woman who comments on anything about dogs, to telling people to use a long lead. Someone's like, my dog escaped, looking for it. And someone's like, I put mine on a long lead. It's like,
that's a go-to comment.
That's not relevant.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up. And there's a woman that's been letting her dog foul in people's gardens and was caught in a Ring doorbell.
Excellent. The catcher part, that she was caught.
Excrement. The following year, in February of 2012, law enforcement was summoned to the Blanchard house after Dee Dee and Gypsy were both apprehended, having shoplifted several arts and craft supplies valued at $21.53 from a local Hobby Lobby store. Odd thing to steal. Yeah.
It's even odder, the excuse that she will use is
oh, well.
Even odder, even more odd.
The stolen items were found to have been concealed in the wheelchair beneath Gypsy's legs. Dee Dee informed the authorities that they had just returned from Disneyland and intended to create a scrapbook. She claimed that the theft was unintentional, stating that they had simply forgotten to return the items after they fell into Gypsy's wheelchair. No additional charges were made, and the pair were let off without a warning. Yeah, that's a terrible excuse.
Specific set of items that all fell one by one as well. You got your canvas, your scrapbook, your pens, your sticky Pritt stick.
Your sticky Pritt sticky.
Sticky Pritt sticky.
Elmer's glue, big over there.
Oh.
Later that same year, a pivotal character enters the case, an individual who would forever change the lives of both Dee Dee and Gypsy Rose Blanchard. Nicholas Godejohn was born on the 20th of May 1989 in the village of Big Bend, Wisconsin. He was a little over 2 years older than Gypsy Rose. Like Gypsy, he had a troubling background, but for very different reasons. Nicholas had a challenging upbringing and a history of different mental illnesses throughout much of his early life. His parents separated when he was young, and he spent all of his school life in special education classes. In March of 2013, Nicholas was arrested and charged with carrying a concealed weapon and disorderly conduct. The following month, he was arrested for public indecency and indecent exposure after being caught masturbating to porn for almost 9 hours inside a local McDonald's. Which bit did you change?
That's a fucking full day's work.
That's all.
9 hours.
That's all legitimate.
Yeah, 9 hours like McDonald's. Jeez. Fast food, but slow wank. Yeah.
9
Jesus.
hours.
Can I have a big whack, please? Big whack. Yeah, I want fries with that.
I don't know if they've only caught him towards, the back end of, 8-9 hour mark, or if someone's seen it early doors and been like, nah, he's not, is he? He's not.
Is he? Can't be.
5 hours later, nah, he's not, is he?
He's sharpening pencils, surely.
Yeah.
It was later revealed that he had dissociative identity disorder, an IQ of 82, and was also on the autistic spectrum. Nicholas met and started chatting with Gypsy on a website specifically for Christian singles, where the pair began to form an online relationship.
Tom, you're quite quick thinking. What would be a good name for a dating site for Christian singles?
The Second Coming?
Damn.
That was so fucking quick.
Unreal.
Don't know if I'd go there. Not really a religious type.
Could you do something with Resurrection?
Oh, yeah. Redirection. No.
Redirection. It probably was after 9 hours.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh.
Yeah.
Over the following months, the pair started talking regularly, flirting with one another, and talking about different things they would do to one another if they were able to meet in person, including a lot of BDSM chit-chat, Ben has put.
It was a lot.
An example of what that kind of...
I think it's sort of, I'd like to sort of tie you up and do this and do that and...
Do what?
I don't know, smack you in the bum and tie you up a bit more and smack you in the bum again. Tie your hands behind your back and smack you in the bum.
That's hot.
Don't know.
Thank you, bum smacking.
Yeah, I really don't know much about that culture.
What are you doing tonight, Ben?
Sounds like it, yeah.
I'm free.
The conversations eventually became so heavy that they even discussed names for their future children. The following year, in March of 2015, not wanting her mother to know she had formed a relationship online, Gypsy purchased Nicholas a bus ticket from Big Bend to Springfield in order for him to randomly bump into her and Dee Dee whilst they were seeing Cinderella at the local cinema. Nicholas went along with the plan and would later claim that he made a good impression on Dee Dee and that, not long after they first met, Gypsy took him to a disabled toilet where the pair had sex. Gypsy would later deny this claim, saying that Nicholas was unable to get erect and that she found him creepy and weird. So they not denying going to the disabled toilet, but maybe after that treatment in McDonald's, he was unable to get Ronald selling to more attention.
Yeah, that whole... So obviously she didn't want her mum to know about her using the computer, being on the internet again. So she sort of said, we'll do like a little meet cute and you can get a ticket to Cinderella. Well, this is the seat I'll be in. And apparently Dee Dee was like glaring at him like, what are you doing sitting next to my daughter? But then the movie came on and Dee Dee was proper into Cinderella, captivated, spellbound by it. And they would start holding hands and kissing in the cinema. And eventually, I don't think Dee Dee even noticed they both got up and gone. For how long, I don't know. But she kept on watching Cinderella.
Glass zippers would be dangerous, wouldn't they?
Yes, yeah.
Heavy as well. Very uncomfortable, I would have thought. Very unforgiving.
Blister.
They had to bring a pair of flats with you that night.
Yes, yeah.
For the walk home.
Good advice.
Yeah, murder. No wonder she left one of them. Regardless, having now met Gypsy and her mother in person, the pair continued their relationship and slowly began to form a plan to murder Dee Dee Blanchard and start a new life together.
So before we move to the timeline, and obviously hindsight is a lovely thing, I wanted to quickly explore a world in which Dee Dee's lies were brought to light and taken action against long before June of 2015, just to see if there was perhaps a way justice could have been brought to this case before, obviously, the murder took place. So if Gypsy or any of Dee Dee's family members or any of the other numerous anonymous callers were able to evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that Dee Dee had been lying about Gypsy from pretty much the moment she was born, I wanted to see what would she have been charged with, or what sort of things would have happened to Dee Dee? Obviously, Munchausen Syndrome by proxy or the more modern term is fabricated or induced illness are not themselves criminal offences, so cannot be prosecuted as such, even though, as we said earlier, 10% of the victims can die from it. They may, however, be of relevance to criminal offences which can be prosecuted. So after a little bit of digging, it's entirely likely that Dee Dee would have been found guilty of numerous counts of both child neglect and child abuse, as well as child cruelty, as well as this fraud, both in terms of failure to disclose information, false representation and abuse of position, obtaining services dishonestly, false imprisonment. And news of these crimes could also have perhaps opened the door to potential murder and attempted murder charges relating to her mother and mother-in-law. These charges, obviously not combining all of them, because there's no guarantee that she could have been convicted of all of them, but they ranged from 10 to 25 years in prison. We covered the Turpin parents' case as a very vague example, and they received 25 to life without the possibility of parole after 22 years. But of course, the lies were not brought to light and an entirely different action was taken. And it is here that we move to the timeline of Gypsy Rose Blanchard, justice or crime.
Early 2015. In recent years, the relationship between Gypsy Rose and her mother Dee Dee had become fractured. As far back as 2009, Gypsy began to suspect that her long list of health issues were fabricated, especially after finding documents indicating she was many years older than she believed. All the while, her mother tried to convince her that these documents were misprints and full of errors, but Gypsy now believed otherwise. For 14 years, Gypsy was unaware of her exact age, and she had remained homeschooled and locked away from an open society by her mother since she was around 7 years old. Gypsy came to the realization that her own mother had been abusing her and falsifying numerous different health conditions in order to gain financial compensation and attention. As well as using the internet as an escape and to form a relationship with Nicholas Godejohn, she also secretly accessed it to learn about factitious disorder imposed on another. Confident in the belief that killing her mother is now her only option in order to live a life free of her, Gypsy begins to share fantasies with Nicholas Godejohn about the different ways in which Dee Dee could be murdered. These fantasies appear to lure Nicholas into a belief that his life would also be better should Dee Dee no longer be in it, leading many to believe that Gypsy, who had been manipulated for most of her life, had now become a manipulator. The pair briefly discuss poisoning and the use of a gun, but later decide on stabbing. Gypsy's plan is now fully in motion.
So there were obviously a couple of other options present, and the ones that Nicholas and Gypsy discussed, one of which was running away, but because she'd already been found once, Gypsy was convinced that Dee Dee would find her again. Nicholas suggested, why don't you just go to the police and tell them everything? Dee Dee had convinced Gypsy that the police would not believe her and that they believed that she had a mental impairment. The final plan that they had was Gypsy had basically floated the idea of Nicholas getting her pregnant, so that perhaps her becoming pregnant would allow them to move away together. But again, there was no real response from Nicholas on that, so they obviously go ahead with the plan to murder Dee Dee.
June 9th, 2015, evening. Nicholas returns to Evening, Gavna. On the evening of June 9th, 2015, much better. Nicholas returns to Springfield after receiving stolen funds sent by Gypsy through the mail for the purpose of acquiring a bus ticket. He arrived at the Blanchard home while Gypsy and her mother were at the local emergency room for the replacement of her feeding tube. He made his way to stay at a local hotel whilst waiting for them to return. Once they returned home and Dee Dee had gone to bed, Nicholas made his way through the darkened street towards the Blanchard residence in the back of a taxi. Gypsy quietly came to the door and reportedly provided him with duct tape, gloves and a knife, with the implication that he would use these items to kill Dee Dee as she unlocked the door and let him into the house. Gypsy then retreats to a nearby bathroom, whilst Nicholas makes his way towards Dee Dee's room. Nicholas approaches Dee Dee, who is lying chest down on a bed in a nightgown, where he proceeds to violently stab her multiple times in the back as Gypsy listens from another room. In a later interrogation, Nicholas would recall the murder in great detail. He claims that he thought he had only stabbed Dee Dee 4 times, as well as cutting the back of her neck with a knife, though he did say he was only counting the ones that went in deep in her lung. Which is brutal, as these were harder to yank out. A post-mortem would later reveal a total of 17 different stab wounds, and the cuts to the back of her neck were almost to the point of decapitation.
Fucking hell.
He concludes that no necrophilia took place with Dee Dee's corpse, and that after the murder, he went and did his secret knock on the bathroom door to let Gypsy know that it was safe.
No, it says what it is.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. The secret knock was actually 3 knocks and 2 scratches. Yeah.
2 scratches. It's creepy, isn't it?
I like the scratches. He claims that Gypsy then proceeded to shave her legs and genitals before the pair partially cleaned up the crime scene, and then Gypsy asked to have consensual anal, vaginal, and oral sex. I don't know if it was in that order, but a note worth making is that Gypsy would later argue this by stating that Nicholas actually raped her in retaliation to not allowing him to have intercourse with her mother at knife point moments before he murdered her, and that Gypsy was crying out for help from her deceased mother when it happened.
So yeah, I mean, a quick point to make on this is because this moment obviously the full trial would be about this, but Nicholas wanting to have intercourse with Dee Dee, whether she was dead or alive, was a big discussion point in this case because Gypsy remained adamant that this was a big part of it for him, and the reason he would do it is so that he could also have sex with Dee Dee. He would deny this, but it's a gruesome scene.
Did she scream or holler or?
Yeah, she did.
What was she saying?
First she said help, and then she didn't recognize who I was. So she said, who are you? And then
she said, who are you?
Yeah.
Okay. And she didn't recognize who you are. She says help, and then what does she say?
And then she called up for Gypsy, but Gypsy didn't do anything.
Okay. She hollered for Gypsy.
Yes.
And did she holler for Gypsy once, twice, 5 times?
3 times.
3 times? And what was she saying? Can you tell me how she said it?
She pretty much yelped it.
Yelped it?
She was like, Gypsy.
Okay.
Yeah, she was loud.
And what did you do when she did that?
It didn't stop me from keep on going.
Okay. You just kept stabbing her?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any reason that we would think that maybe you stabbed her more than 4 times?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Now, did Gypsy come in and stab her?
No.
Gypsy never stabbed her?
She couldn't do it. That's the reason why she asked me to.
Okay. Did you try to get Gypsy to come in and stab her?
No, I would have never done that.
Okay. So when you say 4 actual stabs, so those are the ones that went in deeper?
Yeah.
Nicholas cut his hand and spread his own blood around the room during the attack on Dee Dee. He asked Gypsy to clean the room up completely naked as it turned him on. After partially cleaning up the crime scene and having intercourse, the couple then stole more than $4,400 in cash, which was apparently child support payments from Rod that Dee Dee kept in the house so she didn't have to declare it, and Dee Dee's phone. A lot of links between our very own Ben.
Sorry?
Not declaring things and secrets. And They also take several disguises for Gypsy. They then leave for a motel just outside of Springfield, maybe Shelbyville, where they would stay and be observed by many different in-store CCTV cameras for the next 48 hours. Here, they would post the murder weapon back to Nicholas's house in Wisconsin, before jumping on a bus almost 500 miles away to the same location a few hours later. During this 2-day period, Gypsy was convinced that she had gotten away with murder, and, at the worst case, felt that she could perhaps make it look like she had been abducted as part of Dee Dee's murder. Wild. It's just, obviously, like as you said earlier, once things start to click in Gypsy's head, that how she's been treated, how she's been controlled, manipulated, and a lot of people feel sympathy for her, which I think I can completely see why. But it still is a vicious and heinous attack, and I don't feel that this wasn't the only way out. Yeah,
my opinion keeps shifting on this, but one phrase I heard or one comment I heard was that no one will be able to understand what Gypsy went through and all the pain and suffering that was. There's very few people in the world that will know what that feels like. So it's hard to get in that mind. If she, in her own mind, believed the police, I can't go to the police because they're not going to believe me, and I can't run away because she'll find me. You can kind of then start to see how, okay, maybe this was her only option, but she hasn't also done it herself. She's got someone else to do the dirty work who she has in turn manipulated. So it's a case like no other. June 14th, 2015, 3:32 local time. Gypsy and Nicholas post a cryptic message on Dee Dee's Facebook account. The first one says, "That bitch is dead," and that's posted as a status. This post alerts friends who try to call and message Dee Dee without any response. They then contact the police, and some make their way to the Blanchard house. Gypsy and Nicholas add a comment to the status 17 minutes later, which stated the following: "I fucking slashed that fat pig and fucking raped her." Oh, I don't want to say this. So this is what was commented in reply to the status. Either Gypsy or Nicholas had typed this out. I fucking slashed that fat pig and fucking raped her sweet innocent daughter. Her scream was so fucking loud. Lol. I really didn't want to read that.
And what did they actually say?
As concerned friends arrive at the Blanchard house, they were made more concerned by the fact that the front door was not being answered and Dee Dee's heavily modified car was still in the driveway. This meant that there was no way Dee Dee had been hacked, in terms of her social media, and that Dee Dee wasn't out of the house taking Gypsy to her routine medical appointments. Upon the arrival of the police, they were required to wait for the issuance of a search warrant prior to entering the premises. However, as this was an emergency, they permitted one of the neighbours who was present to access the house through a window. Which, that, to me, I don't feel like they've done. I mean, even the Chris Watts is very famous, can't enter the house until someone's there. And obviously the warrant hasn't arrived at this point and they've allowed a neighbour to sort of climb in through a window. I don't know what not saying they shouldn't have done this, obviously.
I think they shouldn't have done it. I think, like, because then what if the neighbour was involved?
That's true. That's very true.
And then if they're putting the DNA everywhere, then it's like, oh, it's because I did that, wasn't it?
Yeah. So strange little moment there. So upon this neighbour climbing through the window, they observed that the interior of the residence remained largely untouched, and even more concerning, all of Gypsy's wheelchairs were still in place. Once the warrant was finally granted, police entered the house where they discovered the extensively savaged corpse of Dee Dee Blanchard. Shocked by the news, neighbours became increasingly concerned that Gypsy had been abducted, and they feared that, even if Gypsy had not been harmed in the abduction, she would be completely helpless without her wheelchair, medications and support equipment like the oxygen tanks and feeding tube. This was obviously all incredibly far from the truth in many different senses. A GoFundMe is immediately set up to pay for Dee Dee's funeral expenses, with the chilling added detail that it may also be needed to cover the funeral expenses of her missing daughter.
June 15th, 2015, after a tip-off from one of Gypsy's close friends, Aaliyah Woodmansey, police learn of the online relationship between Gypsy and Nicholas Godejohn. Following his IP address, police raid the home of and subsequently arrest Gypsy and Nicholas in Big Bend, Wisconsin. I feel like that's just an interesting name for a place.
It looks like a quaint little village. Yeah, it looks all right.
Brilliant. You should go there, then it'll be Big Ben in Big Bend.
It would, yeah, in a way, yeah.
Definitely. After a brief standoff, the pair surrendered to the police, who initially suspected Nicholas to have kidnapped Gypsy, but were shocked to find her both alive and well, and walking without aid. The pair were taken into custody under charges of murder and felony armed criminal action. Later that same night, more than 60 people gathered in downtown Springfield to hold a candlelit vigil in memory of Dee Dee Blanchard.
Mr. Burns was there.
I imagine it would be by the statue of Jebediah Springfield. That's where I imagine it would happen.
Yeah, I could see that.
June 16th, 2015. As we showed in a clip not long ago, Nicholas Godejohn is interrogated by Waukesha County Sheriff's Department. In the interrogation, much of which is available online, he reaffirms his love for Gypsy and the fact that he murdered Dee Dee for her. He claims that Gypsy was hiding in the bathroom, in case Dee Dee overpowered him and killed him during the ordeal. He also confirms that Gypsy had purchased the knife for him and that she had selected stabbing over poisoning due to it being quicker and more peaceful, after researching it on the internet. Is it?
I mean, that the way we've described the murder, it didn't sound like there was any peaceful element to that.
And it wasn't that quick either.
No.
Jeez.
17 stabbings.
Yeah.
Not quick in my book, Dan.
No, I agree, man.
Thank you.
Bang on, actually.
Sick, man.
Why did you guys decide stabbing would be what you did to kill her?
Honestly, the thing is we really wouldn't have known how to poison her. Honestly, we wouldn't have known how to.
Okay.
I mean, she looked up multiple times of how to do it because she wanted to find the quickest way to do it.
Okay, so like she looked up on the internet,
Yes.
like how to kill her mom?
Yes.
Okay. And so she was looking for the easiest way to do it?
Yes, this
Okay.
way she would be in less pain. She wanted her mom's death to be quick.
Okay, so you wouldn't have known how to do the poisoning. And so, again, why did we choose the knife? Like, why?
The reason why we chose the knife is because I guess she thought that it'd be quicker if she bled out quickly.
Okay. Now, did she tell you that, or is that something you think she thought?
Most likely that's what I would think she would
Okay, but she didn't tell you to
No.
stab her because she'd bleed out quickly?
No.
Okay.
That's what I figured she would think because it makes sense more holes, faster they go away and the faster they are at peace.
Okay. So the more holes you put into the body?
Yeah.
Is that what I'm understanding? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that's why you chose to stab her.
Yeah.
Back in Springfield, meanwhile, celebrations that Gypsy had been found alive and well are cut short by the words of Greene County Sheriff Jim Arnott, who announced in a press conference, "This is an ongoing investigation, but I want to start off by saying things are not always as they appear."
You can tell by his face when he says this as well that he's taken aback by what's happened.
Wouldn't you be?
Absolutely would be. And this is the very first thing when we started researching this episode I saw was the interrogation of Nicholas Godejohn. And immediately I felt bad for him because it's clear he doesn't have any lawyer present. He's being very open and honest. He sounds a lot like James Franco, the way he talks. Gypsy fully manipulated this individual and he happened to be, or have the capabilities of being, more of a monster than Dee Dee, who was already quite a monster.
The sheriff concluded his press conference by asking that people refrain from making any donations to the family, whilst investigations into both the murder and the extent of the fraud were still ongoing. As part of the investigation, it was unearthed that Gypsy had been maintaining several different social media accounts, one of which on Facebook had liked pictures of sadomasochism. Under the increased pressure and caught in a web of lies of her own, Gypsy eventually confesses to her role in the murder. Public outcry grows after details of Dee Dee's abuse are revealed through the media. Gypsy moves from an evil criminal capable of a horrific murder to a symbol of Munchausen Syndrome by proxy survivors, and a victim of extensive child abuse, the likes of which had never been seen before.
You need to be honest with me, and if you're involved in anything that I'm about ready to tell you, then you need to tell me, okay? Your mom's dead, okay? Now, what I want to ask you is, your mom's passed away, okay? And she's deceased, all right? Now, what I want to ask you, did you have involvement in this? Okay. Hang on, listen to me for just a second, okay? I want you to understand something, okay? Remember the snowball that we talked about? You remember the pencil that we talked about? I'm going to demonstrate something with a pencil here, okay? Look at me. Look at me for just a second, okay? Sometimes people are going along, you know how you got a pencil? You got the lead here and you got the eraser right here, right? You know what I'm talking about? You've seen a pencil, right? You've used a pencil before, right? Okay? And when you write with a pencil, you write your own story, right? Okay? And you take that pencil and you're writing along with your story. Well, sometimes some people make mistakes when they write stuff down, don't they? We've all made mistakes. You've made mistakes. I've made mistakes, right? You ever made a mistake in your life? And I've made mistakes in my life. And hang on just a second, okay? When you're writing this stuff down, all of a sudden you make a mistake. Well, what do you do with that mistake? You take that pencil and you flip it over and you start erasing stuff, okay? And you erase it and you recorrect it. And you take that pencil and then you rewrite your story, okay? And I kind of think that's where you're at with this tonight, okay? That you have a chance to rewrite your story. And I think that's what you can do, is you can rewrite your story tonight.
Debates rage on throughout the remainder of the year and into 2016 regarding the culpability of both Gypsy Rose and Nicholas Godejohn, as well as Dee Dee Blanchard, relating to the wider context of the case. As the trial lingered, County Prosecutor Dan Patterson declared that he would not pursue the death penalty for either Gypsy or Nicholas, despite the fact that first-degree murder charges in Missouri can result in capital punishment or life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. He characterised the case as extraordinary and unusual.
It lines up.
Yeah, I think that's fair. All the way back in Louisiana, Dee Dee's family, who had claimed to have addressed her treatment of Gypsy many years prior, did not express sorrow at her passing. Her father, stepmother, and the nephew who initially revealed the truth about Gypsy Rose's health when she began using a wheelchair, all later asserted that Dee Dee got what she deserved, and that Gypsy had faced more than sufficient consequences. None of them were willing to cover the cost of Dee Dee's funeral, and her father and stepmother disposed of her ashes by flushing them down the toilet.
Wow.
That is a bleak way to go.
July the 5th, 2016, after accepting a plea bargain, Gypsy pleads guilty to second-degree murder and is sentenced to 10 years in prison. Nicholas Godejohn, meanwhile, continued to confront the more serious charge as prosecutors argued that he was the instigator of the murder scheme, and both he and Gypsy acknowledged that he was ultimately responsible for Dee Dee's death. Additionally, he faced harsher prosecution due to various personal factors. He received less empathy and consideration because he was not directly involved in the lifelong abuse that obviously Gypsy Rose had been through. Furthermore, Gypsy's plea bargain did not obligate her to provide testimony against him. Despite arguments relating to diminished capacity and the fact that he was, quote, love-struck and would have done anything for Gypsy Rose and was functioning at the capacity of a 10-year-old, Nicholas Godejohn is later sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus 25 years for first-degree murder after just 4 days of trial and 2 hours of deliberations. During a later appeal hearing for Nicholas Godejohn, videos were presented to the court that depicted Gypsy emotionally influencing Nicholas, as well as providing him with an instructional video detailing how to stab Dee Dee. Questions arose regarding the absence of these materials during the initial trial. So yeah, that's a big bit of evidence there. He received far less, obviously, public sympathy and was painted far more of a villain than Gypsy, but I mean, that's the most strict sentence they could impose on him, right?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, obviously, with Gypsy saying, which, you know, we can't be certain, about her claiming that he raped her and that she was crying out for her mum and things like that. Obviously, she's using that in the court to throw him under the bus, so to speak, and to clear her of any wrongdoing in that sense. You can see why the public demonised him a bit in this case. But from everyone I spoke to about this case, obviously everyone seems to have sympathy for Gypsy Rose, and I think, you know, you can't not have sympathy for her. Obviously, I think, like I said earlier, sadly, like, I know it's easy for me to say that this wasn't the only way that it had to be dealt with, but I do believe there's obviously other ways that could have happened. Contacting people and talking to people, and obviously Nicholas not having full intellectual capacity, you can't discount that in this case. And like the childlike naivety towards it, and thinking that he's going to be a hero in this, you know, he's saving the person he loves from this evil monster kind of thing.
Yeah,
you need to keep that in mind when prosecuting him.
Yeah, it's tricky. I remember we covered this a few years ago. Obviously, loads has happened since. We covered it as a minisode, and I remember having sympathy for him then, because he still at that time absolutely adored her, would have done anything for her, would do it again for her. She's very quick to kind of move on from him, and obviously, as Tom said, when they first met in that cinema, she viewed him as creepy and weird. I think she knew what he was capable of. She was aware of it, obviously the McDonald's incident and other things that he'd been convicted of. So I feel like she's lived a life of manipulation, and then she's learned how to become the ultimate manipulator, and he's now lost any chance of a life at the moment. As far as November of 2023, public defenders have basically filed an appeal for a new trial for Nicholas Godejohn, but at the moment, at the time of recording, no time frame has been confirmed as to when this will be reviewed. So that was kind of the timeline. There's a little bit of aftermath just to go through. So we start in 2019. 3 years into her sentence, Gypsy Rose begins advocating for awareness about child abuse and Munchausen Syndrome by proxy from prison. She also stated the following in an interview with 2020, "I feel like I'm more free in prison than when I was living with my mum, because now I'm allowed to just live like a normal woman." Which, yeah, that does not paint her mother in the best light, as many other quotes will obviously not do. The case subsequently gained widespread media attention, including documentaries like Mummy Dead and Dearest, Mother of All Murders, Love You to Death, and the Hulu TV series The Act, in which Gypsy states, "Nobody will ever hear me say I'm glad she's dead or I'm proud of what I did. I regret it every single day."
December 28th, 2023, after serving 8.5 years of a 10-year sentence, Gypsy Rose Blanchard becomes eligible for parole and is released from prison. Her case continues to spark debate about culpability and the impact of long-term systematic abuse. In more personal news, Gypsy had gotten married in June of 2022 to the man by the name of Ryan Scott Anderson, who some people have actually gone on to say he looks a little bit like Dee Dee, which I'm just going to look now and have a little look myself. Literally just... has glasses and is a slightly larger man.
Lookalike, is back.
Yeah, I feel like that's a Ben level lookalike there.
It's according to some commenters, not necessarily me.
Yeah, but what happens? I'll say it's a Ben.
me.
I'll say it's a Ben lookalike, and then everyone goes, "Yeah, it looks exactly like it. Ben's completely correct." It's like, okay, that's fine.
No, I would say he looks like the big one out of Penn and Teller, the magicians.
That's much better than
Penn and Teller. Better. Which one is the big one?
Penn.
He looks like Penn from Penn and Teller.
Because Teller doesn't speak.
That makes sense.
You seen John with Dinner No, what's his name? Dinner with John.
Yes.
Like that.
Oh, that's great. Come inside. Take a seat.
Dan, that's spot on.
Take a seat.
How was your day?
Thanks for coming over for dinner.
Take a seat. That was 9.5 out of 10 every time. I don't believe him now. I think they can't all be fucking amazing, John. But anyway.
That's solid, Dan. Well done.
However, the pair divorced just 3 months after Gypsy was released from prison. She made the following statement on a private Facebook account.
People have been asking what is going on in my life. Unfortunately, my husband and I are going through a separation, and I moved in with my parents' home down the bayou. I have the support of my family and friends to help guide me through this. I am learning to listen to my heart. Right now, I need time to let myself find who I am.
I gotta listen to my heart. Gonna tell me what to do. On April 30th, 2024, Gypsy Rose revealed through TMZ that she had reignited a relationship with her former fiancé, Ken Urker. Subsequently, on the 9th of July in 2024, she announced that they were anticipating the arrival of their first child, scheduled for January 2025. Their daughter, named Aurora Rayner Urker, ARU, was welcomed into the world on December 28th, 2024, just a few weeks ago at the time of the recording. What's your thoughts, Ben, about Aurora?
Aurora Rayner Urker. I tried to find a bit more information about this Ken Urker because apparently they'd been engaged another time, but I haven't followed as much of her. There's a documentary that I think is on Prime that's all about her, like life after lockup and stuff like that. Aurora Rayner Urker. I prefer that to Gypsy Rose Blanchard, but again, it probably wouldn't get in my top 40. I don't know why it's 40 is my big, my top 40 of names, but
age makes it easier. American rapper Eminem is actually a victim. What?
Sorry, was that on? It's on.
As I mentioned earlier on, American rapper Eminem is actually a victim of Munchausen disorder by proxy. The American rapper has often addressed it in his music, the experiences of being taken by his mother to various doctors and hospitals for medical evaluations. In his song Cleaning Out My Closet, he reflects on being affected by the illness, stating, going through public housing systems, victim of Munchausen Syndrome. My whole life I was made to believe I was sick when I wasn't until I grew up and blew up. Makes you sick to your stomach, doesn't it? Wasn't that reason you bought the sardines for me, Ma? To try to justify you treated me, Ma? I didn't know she was doing it. So she was doing it to get drugs for herself.
That's the allegation, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think slightly different having that way of doing it. Additionally, he gained custody of his younger brother as a result of his mother's continuous struggles with the condition.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, there's entire Reddit communities that are fascinated by the case and the current life of Gypsy Rose. It's full of information. So we still have a very active and flourishing Facebook group. I'll post some content in there, some links to different Reddit threads that we found interesting and used for the episode. I'll post, obviously, all the Facebook posts before the murder. It's I Could Murder a Podcast, listeners and discussion group. Join the group and we'll let you in.
Come on side, great community, lovely bit of chitter chatter. We just kind of shoot the shit, really. Some big questions asked in there. Ben often puts things in there that he mentions within the cases, like some rabbit holes to go down. And
that Titan depth chart blew up. I think I was letting people into the group every sort of 2 minutes, which was lovely.
Awesome.
It was lovely. So I'll find something sort of baity for you regarding this case, and it'll be in there.
That deep? What was the meaning of the comment?
Yeah, penguins go fucking deep.
And the deeper they go, the more the meaner the name of the fish.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
Slightly cunty fish at the bottom.
Slightly cunty.
Oh, what the didn't see that coming. Guess I played Dada. How you doing anyway? Right?
Since obviously, in recent months, since the birth of her daughter and prior to, she's made numerous celebrity appearances. There's lots of additional photos now of her having served 8.5 years of a sentence with different celebrities. She's also rumoured to be doing the podcast circuit. And from different books and documentary appearances, things like that, we had a little look at cosmopolitan.com, and as of the beginning of 2024, Gypsy Rose Blanchard is reported to possess a net worth estimated to be approximately $3 million or £2.3 million.
I never believe any of those things.
Yeah, they're always, every website, there were 5 or 6 of them, they all had this same figure. But it's hard to know. Her wealth is believed to have been accumulated through several documentaries and television dramatizations of her life, notably including Hulu's The Act. Additionally, she has a book titled Conversations on the Eve of Freedom that was not factored into this, as well as a Lifetime documentary series called Gypsy Rose: Life After Lockup, and that's very recently came out. She also appeared in the 5th season of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, which was jarring to read, to learn.
That is weird. Ben, obviously as now a seasoned podcaster, you've got one question to ask Gypsy in your podcast. What are you asking her?
Oh, wow. Seasoned podcaster. Do you feel more free now? Or less free now? Because now,
out of jail.
Well, now she's got now she's a celebrity. She's caught in that web, and people always asking her, why do you do this? Why do you do that? That comes with a sort of prison cell of its own, albeit invisible.
I would assume she feels way more free than she
wheelchair,
maybe different life,
surgeries.
Different life,
she gets to skip the queue at Disney, but she probably still does that now.
Yeah, I didn't get much time to prep my question, Gypsy.
I would ask her why would she think this sort of response is acceptable?
Yeah, does she feel guilty for gaining celebrity after the heinous crime she's committed?
Another good question.
Because, let me clarify that, I am arguing with myself. I've been arguing with myself in the entire episode.
I could tell by your eyes.
Yes. I don't know what to think. I do think the response was way out of proportion, but I do feel very, very sorry for her. So I don't know what to think, really.
Yeah.
It's fair.
As I said, I might be simplifying it too much by saying there was obviously another way of dealing with it, but...
You will never know until we...
Is it too ignorant to say, why wouldn't you just run away?
Well, she'd done it once and her mum had quickly found her. She's very distinctive looking.
But I just think, like, with that though, it's like you run away or you go to the police and you say this, I don't want to go back there. And it's like, I know, like, obviously very weird person to relate this to, but the Britney Spears family had that thing over her where it's basically controlled over her assets and stuff like that and had control on her, and she couldn't really do anything about it. I'm not sure it was as extreme as her mum had this over her at this point. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like that along the way there's lots of moments when you kind of feel like, why wasn't this looked into? Why wasn't this checked into? But yeah, as Dan said, like, I think the mum was mentally unwell for doing what she's doing, but then when she's doing things like hitting her and beating her and squeezing her hand for her to aid to the lie, that's when you go, okay, she's aware of certain aspects of this. I know this is very hypocritical of us doing a podcast about true crime, but I find it a bit icky, her becoming a celebrity and doing things like the Kardashians and stuff like that because of this case. I just don't know, I feel that's a bit odd.
I think it's tricky, isn't it? Because a lot of cases we've covered where they are very much going to struggle to stay out of the spotlight, find a traditional income. Like Michael Peterson's on the bloody talk show circuit, isn't he? He's been on Good Morning, he's been everywhere.
But that was to promote the series, wasn't it, more than anything?
Which again, he's getting coin from.
Yeah, but that's not been on the Kardashians. I think getting interviewed about the case, and then even on that, he's actually been questioned and like kind of pushed on the case. I think it's different to appearing on Kardashians and just being a public figure. I don't know.
It's tricky. It reminded me as well with the not going to the police thing. Do you remember when we did The Girl in the Box, Colleen Stan? And like he had manipulated her to the point that he would let her go out on the front lawn, police would go by, and convinced her that police were actually against her. I know only, as far as we're aware, Dee Dee had convinced Gypsy once that the police wouldn't listen to her, and she'd been listed as, mentally impaired. So I don't know, but I agree with both your summaries of the case. I think it's just, she was battling Dee Dee for so long that she needed a way out, and Nicholas Godejohn was a casualty of her way out, as well as Dee Dee being that. So horrible case. So we'll end the episode with a quote from a lot of people's favourite YouTube doctor, Dr. Todd Grande, and he concluded on the case.
In Gypsy's mind, battling such an opposing monster would require another monster who was even more terrifying. She found this in the form of Nicholas Godejohn. Dee Dee Blanchard was the chief architect of her own demise. She supplied the fear, the pain, the terror, and the helplessness which was used to construct her death.
Very well put from Dr. Todd there. I don't always give him his flowers, but that was nicely put, Todd.
So there you have it. That was the case of Gypsy Rose Blanchard, the murder of Dee Dee Blanchard. Yeah, a case like no other, as we said. We'll be fascinated to know what you guys think of the case. Please do let us know. YouTube, Spotify, wherever else you're getting this episode. Pop a comment. What's your opinion on the case? Is she innocent of all this? Is she a victim?
Yeah, do let us know. Always very interested to hear what you have to say. Obviously, you can comment over on Spotify or underneath the YouTube video. We always like to hear what you guys have to say. It has kind of evoked a thing in me like from that, because we did mention the phrase web of lies a few times, and I was thinking if that was an actual thing, a web of lies, I could just imagine a spider being very like seeing things and like being anxious and just like thinking he's seen a fly and running across it, it's not there, and just being sweaty. It's giving me a real anxious feeling deep within my body. Web of lies, forgetful.
That'll be in your dreams tonight.
It probably will. Probably will. And yes, guys, if you haven't had enough or you want an extra top-up of ICMAP action, then we do have over 200 minisodes over on the website, or you can sign up on Spotify. You'll see all the padlocks on there. Click on there and you can unlock all those episodes. And all the visual is also on Spotify, so win-win.
Yeah, we've done some fascinating cases over there recently, and you can binge them all in one go or at your convenience. We add new episodes every single week on there as well as the main channel. So yeah, any support we massively appreciate.
And now it's time for the nation to sigh, just clench their fists and dig their fingernails into their palms and go, why do they keep this in?
Yes.
It is Ben's cryptic clue.
It's dying a death.
Benjamin Carter's cryptic clues. Everyone gather round for some clues that can be quite cryptic, but he's going to give them to you anyway. Hope you can figure them out.
So I've, welcome back, guys. I feel a little bit sort of half-hearted in this. I've got 3 for next week. I'm just going to run them past the boys. So I've shared, look at Dan right now. I've shared 3 of them with him. He can't pick between them. They're that good. So next week's case, one of the Trotters' forts. And that's forts, F-O-R-T-S. One of the Trotters' forts.
Yeah, I think that was needed. But yeah, nice. That one makes sense.
Thank you. Does it? We
had to go through the other 2, which didn't make sense or were a bit too much of a giveaway, but like that one actually makes a bit of sense.
Okay.
You can explain that first one. We'll tell them what that is in the next episode, and they can go.
Sure.
You can do your bit there. Don't worry.
Cheers.
That's all right.
Who knows if you'll see me next week? Who knows?
Oh. See you in Norton Towers being pushed around by.
Okay.
So thank you so much for joining us, guys. We could not do this without you, and we look forward to seeing you next week with a brand new case. And until then, like we always say,
we say this all the time.
Keep doing what you do.
Well, dear me, unless it's telling a web of lies, fondling relatives. We've already talked about that. Don't do it. Already talked about that. Check out Dinner for John with John. Go to John. Someone help me, please.
See you later, guys.
Oh.
Go on.
Oh. No, I was going to say, don't seek sympathy and attention constantly, because it creates an unstable adult, basically.
That feels targeted.
No, it doesn't. It's to the audience. It's to the audience.
See you later, guys.
Blokes
It wasn't. See ya.
I did think of that.
Cut.